Hi, welcome back to Watchful Studio. Today I'm going to be reviewing Golems by Francesco Testini and Sergio Chavez. It was recently published by Thundergriff Games through a Kickstarter campaign, and we've just taken delivery of it. This is one of 5 games in the collection. They all come in these very attractive matchbox boxes, and in this one we get 13 plastic gems and 50 odd cards depicting golems and gemstones. We get a tiny rules booklet which is adequate, and there are rules published online as well. Right, let's get into it. So this is a card drafting and set collection game, and the cards are laid out in 4 rows of 3, and players will use the gems to take turns to draft the cards, which will use up the cards in the row. When a row gets exhausted, new cards are laid out in a new row, and when the rows can't be replenished, the game is ended and you score the sets that you collected. Let's take a look. Now there are 3 types of cards in the game. We've got Golem Cards that either work as a golem if you summoned them with their resources, or they work as resources themselves to summon golems. Then we've got Crystal Cards, which are either used for the bonus they give and taken to hand for points, or you can meld them to score points with them. And finally we've got Rune Cards, which will give you more resources, or under certain conditions you can take them to hand and score points with them at the end of the game. So those are the 3 card types. So gems are the means by which we draft the cards. Each player will start with 4 and 5 in the central supply. We put gems onto cards and draft them like so, and if we draft the last card in a row, you get the gems back. If you draft a gem card, you can get more gems, and it's possible to run out of gems, in which case you can miss a turn and take them from the central supply. Now, if the central supply is empty, you can take them from your opponent, and we like this. So this is how we use the gems to buy the cards. If there are 3 cards in a row, we put gems on the cards we don't want. If there's 2 cards in a row, we move the gem to the card we don't want. And if there's only 1 card in a row, we get the card and the gems. Another way to think of that is, if it's a row of 3, a card costs 2. If it's a row of 2, the card comes free. And if there's a row with only 1 card in it, it comes with extra gems. It's a really good mechanism. So as we've said, cards can be used in one of 2 ways. If it's a golem card, it's either played for its resources, or if you have enough resources, you can summon it as a golem. When you take it as a resource, you start a new column in that colour, and if you already have a column started, then you add it, and the order of the cards becomes important later. Some of the cards are wild for colour, and they can't start a column. They have to be placed under an existing column, and they take the colour of that column. Now, once you have enough resources to summon a golem, in this case I have 3 white, and I have at least 2 green, then you can summon the golem, and you must sacrifice 1, 2 or 3 matching resources to the golem and tuck them under the card. So in this case, let's say I sacrifice 1 white and 1 green matching colours. Then at the end of the game, this golem will be worth 2 points on its own, plus the 2 points that you've, in this case, tucked under. Now, rune cards can be used also in one of 2 ways. They're either double resources, or they provide scoring bonuses at the end of the game. In this case, the scoring bonuses are an extra point for every crystal you have in your collection, extra points for resources, extra 2 points for every green golem. If you take them as a resource, they have to be placed in columns with which they share a colour. So this one would go in the green column. This one could go either in the red, is that orange, or green column, and this one could go in either the yellow or blue columns. Now if you take a rune card for its scoring side, you have to meet some requirements. You have to have at least 3 crystals in your supply, and when you take it, you must pay one of them to the central supply. Then you take it to hand, and at the end of the game, you'll get the bonuses on the card. Now the rune cards have an additional function, which is that the 4 cards with the squares in the corner are shuffled, and one is dealt to each player at the beginning of the game, and this will be your secret scoring card. So for example, yellow golems will give you 2 at the end of the game. Blue golems will give you 2 at the end of the game, 2 each. Green golems will give you 2 each, and orange golems will give you 2 each. And the others are shuffled back into the deck, so during the game it may be possible to work out what golems your opponent's going for. Now the gem cards can be played either to take gems from the central supply and to your hand for a bonus, or they can be played upside down, crushed to dust, and played for points at the end of the game. The point system for gem dust is a multiplier, 1, 3, 6 and 10 points. You can't earn more than 10 points. So let's just have a look at some of these bonuses. This is take a gem and get 2 points at the end of the game. This is take 2 gems and you may play it from your hand as any colour resource. This is take 3 gems, and so on and so forth. So those are the components and the rules. Let's do a bit of a run through and show how those rules will work together. When we set up the game, we need 4 rows of 3 cards each. We need 4 gems each and 5 in the central supply. We take out the card with a circle on it, which is just for the solitaire game. And then you take the 4 rune cards with squares on and deal 1 to each player. Now for simplicity, I'm only going to show one player's hand, and don't worry too much about which cards you see in the grid. Obviously I've contrived a setup so I can illustrate the rules. I've decided I want to take this green golem, so I place 2 crystals on the other cards. I don't have a green resource, so I start a new column. My opponent takes the white card. I like the look of the blue card, so I take it. I don't have a blue column, so I start a new column, and I get my 2 crystals back. My opponent takes the white card. I like the look of the orange card. I don't have a column, so I start a new one. He takes the remaining and gets his gems back. And the game proceeds like that. Now let's assume that the play's moved on a bit. Both players have built up their resources and they're in a position to actually summon the golems rather than just play them as resources. If I want to take this card, I have to pay my gems, and I must be able to cover the cost. In this case it's 2 white, 2 blue and 1 green, all of which I've got. And then I must sacrifice 1, 2 or 3 of those matching resources to the golem. Let's say I do a green and a white and a blue. At the end of the game, that's 2 points for the golem and 3 points for the cards I've tucked underneath it. And they go there, melded on the table. Let's take a look at the other cards. If I take a gem card, I can play it for its bonus and take it to hand. In this case, this would be 1 gem from the central supply, taken to hand and giving me 2 points at the end of the game. Or I can crush it to dust and have points for it as a set at the end of the game, which I mentioned in the rules. Here's one that gives me 2 from the central supply. Remember, if the central supply is empty, I can take the gems from my opponent, which is great. And this one I can keep in hand until I want to play it as any one colour, any one resource. If I take a Rune card, as we know, we can play it for its colours. It can't start a column, but it can go into any extant column where the colours match. If I want to take it for its points, which is powerful, I have to meet certain requirements. These are that I have 3 gems in my own supply. I can pay one of them to the central supply, and then it goes to hand and helps me score at the end of the game. In this case, I'd get a point for every gem that I had left over. If I had taken this one, which could have been played for a white or a blue, I will get 1 point for every unused resource. These are very powerful, and hence that extra requirement. Okay, let's talk about scoring. The game ends when a row is exhausted and it can't be replenished from the deck. At that point, you add up your points. Score 2 points for each of your golems and 1 point for each of the cards you tucked underneath. In this case, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 for your golems. Then score your Rune cards. In this case, 1 point for each of my remaining resources. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And my secret Rune card, which was given at the beginning of the game, 2 points for any green golems, which was an extra 2 points. That's the scoring. Right then, all my toxic opinions. What do we think of golems? I am going to talk about my niggles first and end on an up note. Some niggles. The artwork is very, very good. I really like it. It's evocative of the theme. The integration with the graphic design could be a little better. The Rune cards, blue golems and crystal cards all sit in the same colourway, a little bit difficult to distinguish. That could be slightly better. The crystal cards, this is good and a necessary part of the game to give yourself more crystals. Ideally take some from your opponent as well. The bonuses are okay, some of them are a bit fiddly. Rune cards, the requirement to have 3 gems in hand and pay 1 to the central supply feels bolted on. I think it was. I think they play tested it a lot, like the gem mechanism, and found this was the way to balance the game. A big niggle we have is summoning the golems and their resources. In this case, you would have to have 1 white, 1 orange and 3 green. This is fine, but you only have to sacrifice 1, 2 or 3 of those resources to the golem for extra points and tuck it under. And this just feels really awkward. You know, the feeling is, why not sacrifice all 5? And the answer is, again, I bet they play tested it a lot and found that they needed to make it less than that and gave a bit of wiggle room for interest to make it 1, 2 or 3. It does work in terms of points, it's cohesive, but it feels a little bit like a fix, which I'm sure it was. Finally, let's talk about the drafting mechanism. It's really, really good. People have said this is like Splendor. Splendor, Golems edition, somebody said. That's funny, but it's not true. This is better. You have to manage not only the cards you want against your supply and ability to take them, but whether or not you can afford to buy them from the row in the first place with your gems. You've got a supply, your opponent's got a supply, that's continually rotating, and you're trying to take it from your opponent when you can. It's really good, it's tactile, these are nice quality. We really, really like this method. Hats off to Thundergriff for this mechanism. It's really, really good. So, this has been Golems by Thundergriff Games. It's one of 5 in the Matchbox collection. We're going to be reviewing the others in short order. We should get the next one done by the end of the week, so use the notification icon if you'd like a notification for that. Link to the Discord server, come and chat to us about board games. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.